Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and this Points of Order series is all about just explaining how aspects of British politics works rather than discussing them as such. So in British politics, the Queen is head of state, but she's an unelected head of state. She's what's termed a constitutional monarch. Now, there are a number of advantages to this system, but when it comes to helping with a constitutional crisis like Brexit, Her Majesty is entirely powerless to act. The House of Commons are the elected representatives of the people, and so it is they who are sovereign, not the sovereign herself as such. Now, the reigning monarch has to adopt a position of rigid neutrality on all political matters. After all, how can you express a political view only to have to say the exact opposite a few months later when giving the Queen's speech? This is a speech given at the opening of Parliament, but it is written by the Prime Minister to lay out what the government intends to do over the coming session of Parliament. Now, in late January 2019, Queen Elizabeth gave a speech which didn't reference Brexit directly, but did appeal for people to respect differing points of view and to come together to seek common ground. This was a fairly momentous example of intervention on the part of a monarch who has a vital role in the mechanisms of government, but who is not supposed to exercise her own judgment in making such decisions. That is for elected MPs. So, does the Queen have any powers? There are some, but it's best to think of Her Majesty in this case as being like a chauffeur. Sure, the chauffeur is going to do the driving, and so it might appear to someone from the outside that they are deciding when and where they are driving. But they're not. They're simply carrying out the wishes of others. So what powers does the Queen have that could impact Brexit? Well, one, she can suspend and summon Parliament. Suspending a Parliament is called proroguing and happens once a year at the end of a session. It's done on the advice of the Privy Council, distinguished members of Parliament, and so the Queen doesn't need to decide this for herself, simply act on advice from elected members. But the power exists, and Jacob Rees-Mogg recently suggested that the Queen should use it to scupper plans to avoid Brexit. Naturally, she would never make such a decision. He also suggested that the Prime Minister should ask the Queen to do this. Again, it's not the Prime Minister's decision either, it's the Privy Council's. Second, royal assent. Now, this is the term used for signing bills from Parliament into law. Again, the Queen does not exercise judgment here and has always and always will sign into law everything that Parliament has voted in favour of. In theory, she could refuse to sign something, but again, that wouldn't occur. And yet again, the arch-Brexiteers in this particular case have suggested that the Queen should not sign into law anything that derails Brexit. She wouldn't make that call, regardless of where she is on the fence there. 3, hiring and firing ministers, including the Prime Minister. But this is always done on the advice of the MP who has the confidence of the House. So again, no judgment is exercised in the use of this power. Now, there is a very real risk that the Queen could be politicised at some point soon. If a vote of no confidence is issued and this time the government loses, then the House of Commons has 14 days to create a new government. Otherwise, a general election would be called. Now, for this to happen, Conservative MPs would have to vote against their own party. But what if another leader emerged within those 14 days who claimed that they could command the confidence of the House? Now, there isn't a formal process for agreeing to this. It's simply assumed that the leader of the political party that has the confidence of all their MPs, plus that of any MPs with whom the party has made a deal, like the DUP in the case of the Tory government, would be Prime Minister. But when one leader of the Conservative Party has lost the confidence of at least some of their MPs, how do you know that another one emerging claiming that they've got the confidence of all those MPs is right? Now, the Prime Minister is a Crown appointment, so the Queen would be asked, in a situation such as that, to confirm a government where she won't necessarily be absolutely sure whether or not it does actually have confidence of the House. A decision would have to be made on a matter where the unelected monarch is not supposed to have to exercise judgment. Now, it is possible that Parliament could obviate the problem by arranging a vote to confirm a new government if there is doubt. But aside from that potentially prickly situation, for the unelected monarch to overrule or otherwise act against the elected House of Commons would create a constitutional crisis much worse than Brexit. In a democracy, it is important that the elected legislators had sovereign power, even if it's essentially appropriated from elsewhere. So the Queen can't intervene, except to speak frankly to the Prime Minister in private during her weekly meetings with her, or to give veiled directions through subtle speeches about coming together for the good of the country, or of course wearing an outfit that looks suspiciously like the EU flag. So hopefully that clears up a few things. If you found the video interesting, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, and until next time, I'll see you later.